So, who really decides when America goes to war? We're always told it's the president, or Congress, or ultimately the voters. But if that's the whole story, why does it feel like American foreign policy kind of stays the same no matter who wins an election? That is the big question we are diving into in this explainer, based on a source that really digs deep into this whole issue. So let's just start with the central, most unsettling question right up front. What if the person sitting in the Oval Office doesn't actually have the final say we all think they do? This is the core idea that kicks off our entire investigation. All right, so where do we begin? Well, the source material we're looking at points to this fundamental contradiction happening right at the very top of American politics, this massive gap between what voters seem to want and what the government actually does. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you have a really clear message coming from voters in recent years, right? They're calling for things like realism and an end to stupid wars. But then, on the other hand, what do we get? The source calls it the same familiar escalation cycle. The country just gets pulled right back in. And this has a huge consequence. As one of the panelists in the source material points out, this kind of disconnect is just devastating for public trust. It creates this deep cynicism, this feeling that your vote, it can change the marketing, the slogans, but not the actual machinery. Well, that leads us to the most logical next question. If it's not just the president, then what in the world is this machinery that seems to be running on its own track? The source actually gives this machinery a name, the permanent policy structure, and it's described as this durable, unelected network that truly shapes foreign policy, pretty much no matter who's in the White House. So what does that mean exactly? Well, it's this network of different actors inside the national security state, and this structure supposedly sets the boundaries of what's even considered possible. The argument is that its influence might just be stronger than the outcome of any single election. So who are we talking about here? Who are the players? The idea isn't some secret conspiracy in a dark room. It's more of a convergence of interests. You've got the intelligence agencies, major donors who are funding campaigns and think tanks, powerful lobbies, senior military leaders, the media institutions that frame the entire debate, and this whole class of foreign policy professionals who are all more or less pulling in a similar direction. This all leads to a really powerful metaphor from the source material. It goes like this. Yes, the president still gets to decide, but they decide from inside a cage that's been built by this permanent structure. Okay, so if this cage exists, how does it actually work? How does this structure manage to exert so much influence? Well, the source material points to three main tools that it uses to shape both policy and public opinion. These three tools are strategic capture, fear-based persuasion, and punishing dissent. The idea is that these three things work together, creating this powerful current that pulls policy in a very specific direction, and that direction is often toward intervention. Let's start with strategic capture. This is basically when an ally sees a conflict as an existential, life-or-death emergency, and their sense of urgency becomes, politically contagious in Washington. And before you know it, their crisis starts to shape American action more than America's own strategic interests. Then you have the second tool, which is fear-based persuasion. This is where fear is used to create this sense of crisis that just compresses time. It makes everything feel super urgent, and it makes caution look like weakness. It creates this moral atmosphere where just asking tough questions or suggesting restraint can get you framed as naive or maybe even disloyal. And of course, that leads directly to the third tool, punishing dissent. Here, instead of debating critics on their arguments, their dissent just gets reclassified. It's now harmful or dangerous or maybe even enemy propaganda. And what this does is create a climate of self-censorship where people just become afraid to speak up at all. So all of this, it builds to a final, really crucial question. If these claims about how power really works are true, what does that actually mean for the future of the country? The question isn't just about one policy. It's about the health of the entire system. I mean, if a full accounting of how decisions are really made ever came out, could the country even handle it? Or has the public been so confused for so long that the truth itself would just be too much to bear? But one of the panelists offers this really powerful insight. People are a lot stronger than they're given credit for. What truly harms a society isn't a painful truth. It's the constant feeling of being lied to, that state of permanent disorientation. Clarity, even if it's harsh, is actually the first step toward any kind of repair. And this gets to the very heart of why the truth is allegedly kept under wraps. The argument for secrecy, as the source puts it, isn't really to protect the public from foreign enemies, it's to protect institutions from public accountability. So ultimately, this isn't presented as a partisan issue at all. It's framed as a national choice. Does the country prefer a comfortable, managed innocence, or is it willing to accept the hard, messy burden of reality, which is the first necessary step to having any kind of genuine self-government? And so we end on this final, pretty provocative thought. It suggests that the only peaceful way back begins with maybe the oldest and perhaps most dangerous idea of all: tell the truth, and then find the courage as a nation to face what it means.